Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the University of Wollongong's Year 10 Subject Selection webinar. My name is Deb, and along with my colleague Doug and our friend Trudy from the University's Admissions Centre, we will be your presenters for this evening. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which the University of Wollongong is situated. We pay our respects to Aboriginal elders past, present and emerging, who are the knowledge holders and teachers. We acknowledge their continued spiritual and cultural connection to country. As we share our own learning, teaching, knowledge and research within this university, we also pay respect to the knowledge embedded forever within the Aboriginal custodianship of country. So my role here at the University of Wollongong is a domestic student recruitment coordinator. So what that means in simple terms is that I help students and their families find out all they need to know about the University of Wollongong courses, our campuses, our admissions programs, student life, costs, pathways, and so on. I studied at the University of Wollongong, albeit many years ago now, and I've also worked here for 19 years. So it's fair to say I love my job. I love getting to help students find out this information. And I honestly believe that the University of Wollongong offers an educational experience that is second to none. So I have also just recently been through this process myself. So I have a son in year 11. So it wasn't long ago that we were doing subject selection. So I understand a little bit of the decisions that you are facing. I know that you'll get provided with information from your schools about all the different subjects available to you, and also maybe some recommendations on which subjects that you might choose to do. So tonight is not about us going through all the different HSC subjects, but rather telling you a little bit about what UOW offers and what HSC subjects might set you up with a good foundation to succeed in those degrees at university. So hopefully between Doug and myself and Trudy, the content that we'll present to you tonight will help provide some clarity as you're making those decisions over the coming months. Now I'm just going to share my screen with you. All right, now thank you for joining us tonight. We do have a fair bit of content to go through. So I apologise in advance for all of the talking that you're about to sit through, but we do have a team of staff on hand to answer your questions. So you'll see the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. You can type any questions that you have in there at any time, and one of the team will assist you. If we do have time at the end of the webinar, Doug and myself will also try and answer some questions on screen. Please note that we do have close to 200 people watching the webinar tonight, so we may not get to all of your questions, but we are able to get a transcript of those questions that we don't get to, and we will try and follow up with you in the coming days. We'll also provide at the end of the presentation ways in which you can get in contact with the University of Wollongong if we don't get around to answering your question. All right, so firstly, what we're going to go through, what you can study at UOW, advice on subject selection. Then I'll hand over to Trudy to talk about the ATAR and scaling. Then after Trudy, Doug will jump on and talk about the UOW Early Admission Program, which many of you will apply for in Year 12. And then he'll also tell you a little bit more about the University of Wollongong. Now, you probably have no idea what you want to do when you get to university. You're only in Year 10, so that's completely understandable. And you're probably being asked by many people, what do you want to do when you leave school? But when we did a survey of Year 12 students, only 28% of Year 12 students had a clear idea of what they want to study. I'm pretty sure if we ask some people my age, there'd still be people working out what they want to do when they grow up. You don't need to have it all figured out now, and even when you get to Year 12, you don't need to have it all figured out. So what I'm going to do is give you some advice though on how you might be able to start trying to narrow it down over the next couple of years, and one of these ways might work for you. You can do what the majority do, which is what I did, and choose a course that aligns with your interest areas and start in that degree and see where it takes you. My favourite subject was business studies, so I picked a business degree and I got to try a number of different subjects. I liked the marketing ones and I ended up picking more subjects in that area, and that's what I graduated from. A lot of students end up graduating from a completely different degree to the one they started in. So there is that flexibility when you get to university. Another thing you might do is look at what motivates you. What are you passionate about? What gets you out of bed in the morning? And what, if you could be paid to do the thing that you love the most, what would that be? Is it exercise and fitness? Is it helping people? Are you passionate about fighting for justice for all, or is it the environment that motivates you? look at what it is that drives you, and then try and find degrees or careers that align with that passion. Or you might do one of those online personality tests. We've all heard of Myers-Briggs tests, where they'll tell you a little bit about your personality and what degrees and careers might suit you. Or you could look at the very end game. What's your dream career? Maybe talk to people, family and friends that work in particular careers or occupations, and ask them what it's really like. What is a day on that job? What does that entail? Or you could come along to all the university open days, and they'll all have them over the next couple of years, and speak to the teaching staff, because a lot of them are industry professionals who've worked out in the field, and they can tell you what the job is all about. I'm going to give you a little sort of a tool that you could use over the next couple of years as well. If you just search UOW Career Central, that will bring you to the website you can see on your screen. And on the left-hand menu, it has what can I do with my degree? And that actually takes you to all of the UOW degrees. You can click on ones that interest you, and it gives you a list of example careers that our graduates have gone on to have after leaving from that degree. And it also lists a number of example employers within each of those fields as well. All right, so what you can see on your screen at the moment is all of the different degrees that you can study at the University of Wollongong, or all of the different disciplines. We actually have over 300 different degrees, so we don't list them all, or there'd be 45 slides for me to go through, but we group them into these 17 areas along with our pathways programs as well. I often get asked about, do we have medicine at the University of Wollongong? And yes, we do, but it's within our Graduate School of Medicine. So some students will do our Bachelor of Pre-Medicine Science and Health degree, and then they'll sit the GAMSAT exam, and they have to go through a grueling interview process and submit a portfolio, and then they try and get into our Doctor of Medicine. So yes, you can do medicine with UOW. It will take you 7 years, but you just won't start in the medical degree straight out of high school. We also, in addition to these groupings that you can see on your screen, we have a number of high achievers programs as well. So we have our Bachelor of Arts in Western Civilization. We also have a whole lot of honours programs that you can do within degrees as well. So there's really a whole range of things that you can undertake whilst you're at university. I'm just going to touch on some of the lingo you're going to hear over the next couple of years. So your first degree that you'll enrol in straight out of high school is called your bachelor degree. So you'll be doing a bachelor of something. And for the majority of students, that will be our only degree. You'll do a bachelor degree at university, you'll graduate, and you'll hopefully go and get your dream job. Some students will go on and do a master's or a PhD, but that's a long way down the track for you guys. But some students from those disciplines that I just showed you on the screen before, they might not be able to decide sort of between which area they want to do. They might have multiple areas of interest or have a really specific career path in mind, and they'll do what's called a double degree. So you can combine a lot of those different things that I showed you before. We have students that do exercise science as a double degree with a Bachelor of Engineering, or you can do a Bachelor of Creative Arts with a Bachelor of Science. And you actually graduate in less time by doing a double degree than you would if you did them one after the other. How we do this is that within your Bachelor of Creative Arts, for example, you'll do all your compulsory subjects within that degree, and then instead of filling up the degree with electives, you'll do all your compulsory subjects within your Bachelor of Science degree. And this will allow you to meet the requirements that you need for both degrees and graduate in as little as 4.5 or 5 years, as opposed to 6 or 7 years if you did them one after the other. But for a lot of students, they'll stick with a single degree and they'll specialise in an area or do a major in an area that they really enjoy. So you might hear a student say, I'm doing a Bachelor of Arts, majoring in English and history with a minor in Spanish. So what that means is they've chosen maybe 8 subjects in the area of history, and they've chosen another 8 in the area of English, and then maybe 4 subjects in Spanish. So how we work out whether you've qualified for a particular major is based on credit points. So like at school, when each of your subjects are worth 1 unit, 2 units, or maybe 3 units, each subject at university is worth either 6 or 8 credit points. And you have to do a predefined amount of credit points within a particular area to classify as having a specialisation in that area. And likewise, you have to do a specific number overall to qualify for the award of that particular degree. So it means you might graduate with a Bachelor of Arts, the same as someone else, but you may have majored in history and they majored in sociology. How is uni different to school? It's very different. And I can guarantee probably at least half of you watching tonight are going to get to year 12 and say, I'm not going to uni. The last thing I want to do is any more study, which is understandable. But it is very different to school. One of the ways it's different, which we just talked about, is you have the opportunity to specialise. So you no longer have to do compulsory English at university if you hate English. And if you're a mad scientist and you're doing all 3 science subjects at school, you can get to university and do 24 or 32 science subjects and really fuel your passion in that field. But also the time that you spend at uni is very different, depending on the degree that you're doing. So if you're doing a humanities degree, say a Bachelor of Business, a full-time student does 4 subjects each semester, and you only have 3 hours of face-to-face time for each of those subjects. So that's 12 hours a week of class if you're doing, say, a Bachelor of Business or a Bachelor of Communication and Media, for example. But you have a lot of extra work then to do at home, reading and writing essays and studying for exams. Where someone that's doing, say, a Bachelor of Engineering or Bachelor of Performance might have more like 25, 26 hours of class time on campus a week, but they're submitting work in class or they're meeting up and doing their rehearsals for their performance subjects, and they have less work to do at home. But you also have a lot of control over your timetable at university. So we teach classes from 8:30 in the morning to 8:30 at night. So if you're not a morning person, you can pick all your classes after lunch. You don't have to be here at 8:30 on a Monday morning. You have a lot of control, and you can try and condense them into maybe 2 or 3 days and have a couple of days a week for part-time work or other activities. And university is fun. There's lots of other great things that you can get involved in that Doug will talk to you a little bit about later. Don't get me started on the holidays. You also get a lot of holidays at university, so plenty of time for travelling when that's available. All right, so into advice for subject selection. So a prerequisite is a subject that you must be doing in order to get entry into a particular degree. And at the University of Wollongong, we only have 3 degrees that have a prerequisite. And that's our Bachelor of Mathematics Education, our Bachelor of Mathematics, and our Bachelor of Data Science and Analytics. And for all 3 of those, the prerequisite is the Bachelor of Mathematics Advanced. For other subjects, for all of our other degrees, we have assumed knowledge and recommended studies. So assumed knowledge is a subject that we assume that you've done for the HSC, and that you're coming into that first year with a certain level of knowledge and understanding, and that you'll cope within the first year subjects within that degree. Whereas our HSC subject that we recommend for a particular degree will help you to succeed in that degree. So you'll do really well if you've studied that subject at a high school level. If you do get to year 12 and you decide on a degree that you want to do, and you look at what the recommended subjects are and you're not doing those for the HSC, it's okay, don't panic. It won't stop you getting into university. They're there as a guide to let you know the subjects you should do in order to do really well. But if you get early admission or you get the ATAR that you need, you can still get entry into a particular degree. But what we might do is recommend that you do one of our bridging courses. So these are either 1 week or 2 weeks long, and they run in the February of just before you start university in March. They only cost either $100 or $200, and they will bring you a little bit up to speed. They certainly won't replace 2 years of having done the subject for the HSC, but they can expose you to concepts to make you feel a little bit more comfortable going into those first year subjects so that you can do the best that you can. We also have certain streams of subjects as well. So if you go into an engineering degree and you've done Mathematics Advanced, but other students have done Extension, we might put you in a particular first year maths subject where the content will be delivered at a slightly slower pace to help bring you up to speed, ready to tackle the rest of the mathematics within the engineering degree. So they're our bridging courses. Now, I've put a couple of examples on the screen. Now, please remember, you can type questions into the Q&A at any time as well. We do have a team behind waiting to answer your questions. So if you're thinking about a degree and you want to know what subjects it requires, you can ask those kind of questions. Or if you want to know anything about the university, pop those in the background and we can help out. But on your screen, you'll see some examples. So our business courses, no prerequisites. We're assuming you do 2 units of English. That's an easy one because at the moment you all have to. But we recommend only for some of our specializations that you're doing 2 units of maths. And that's really only if you're going to go into something like accounting or finance, that might be beneficial for you. Within our mathematics and statistics area, in addition to the 3 degrees that I talked about where Mathematics Advanced was a prerequisite, we do have some other degrees in that field where Mathematics Advanced is just recommended, and some of the degrees, Mathematics Extension 1 is recommended to cope with those degrees at uni. Within the law area, so we offer law as a straight degree or as a double degree with many of our other courses here at UOW. There's no prerequisites. We assume 2 units of English, but we do recommend English Advanced. There is a lot of reading and writing in a law degree, so you have to have a love for really big textbooks. So we do encourage that you're doing English Advanced for Law. I do get asked all the time in Year 12 by students who've decided they want to do law, but they're not doing legal studies, and is that a problem? No, it's not. If you're interested in the law and you want to do legal studies, then definitely do it. But if you get to Year 12 and you haven't done legal studies, it won't stop you going into the law degree. They teach you all the legal concepts that you need to know from day one within the degree. With our education degrees, so we offer 5 different ones here at UOW. One of our most popular being our primary education degree. We have the maths education, which I've talked about, science education, PDHPE, and our early years education for early childhood centres. Each of those have different assumed knowledge and recommended studies. So they're written on the screen there, and I'll show you where we find this information. But basically for our science education degree, we assume that you're doing 2 units of mathematics advanced, and we recommend that you're doing 4 units of science, and that can be either biochemistry, earth and environmental, investigating science, or physics. For our primary education degree, we assume that you're doing 2 units of English. We recommend that you're doing maths, just any 2 units of maths, so that can be standard as well. And there's a reason that we do this. In the primary education degree, there is 3 maths subjects that you will need to do. And also, obviously, you will need to teach maths as a primary school teacher. But also NESA, which is the Education Standards Authority, do require you to sit a Land-Type literacy and numeracy test before you start your last professional placement within the primary education degree. So having a background in HSC maths can help you with, one, those 3 maths subjects that you have to do, but also the numeracy component of the Land-Type exam. However, it's not a requirement, it's not a prerequisite. If you haven't done maths, you can still go into primary education. We just recommend that you do try and keep up maths if you can, if you're thinking about going into primary ed. Now, health and medicine, we offer a range of different degrees like nursing, exercise science and rehab, nutrition and dietetics, our pre-med degree that I mentioned, and our medical science degree. Again, they have a range of different requirements. For the majority of those, we assume that you're doing mathematics advanced, not standard, and we recommend that you're doing 4 units of science from any of those sciences that I've mentioned before. Now, the exception there is the Bachelor of Nursing, and it's extremely popular. With nursing, we only assume that you've done 2 units of English, and that does surprise a lot of people. Everyone expects that they need to be doing biology. Biology will certainly help because you'll have an understanding of the anatomy and the human body and so on going into the nursing degree. But like law, they assume that everybody's coming on the same playing field, and they teach you all of the nursing concepts from the very first subject. So you won't be disadvantaged if you haven't done biology. And then my last example here is physics. So no prerequisites, assuming you're doing mathematics advanced and physics, if you want to go into a physics degree, and 2 units of English, but also recommend that you're doing English Advanced, Maths Extension 1 and Chemistry. Likewise with engineering, we assume that you're doing Mathematics Advanced, but we recommend that you're doing Mathematics Extension 1, engineering studies, and chemistry and physics ideally. Though chemistry is only important for some of our engineering majors, so it depends which one you want to do. Now I'm just going to, as I said, show you where to find this information on the UOW website, because I may not have covered your degree of interest tonight. As I said, there's 300 of them and 290 may not be of any interest to you whatsoever. So I'll show you where to find the information. So hopefully you can see the UOW website on your screen. I'm just going to scroll down and you'll see those discipline areas that I showed you before. Let's choose psychology, also incredibly popular at the moment. We'll scroll down to where we have our undergraduate courses. And I'm going to pick our psychology honours degree, which is our 4-year degree and is required to get pre-accreditation as a psychologist. So we'll scroll down. It tells you a little bit about the degree, what psychologists do and what you study. Some important information here around what the selection rank is for psychology, which of our campuses that it's offered at, how long the degree is, and then the UOW code, which you'll need when you get to Year 12 and you're applying for your university courses. But the bit that I want to show you is here under admission. So if you're an Australian citizen, you'll click on our domestic students here. Sorry, it's quite buried. This is why I'm showing you where it is. You'll scroll down and you'll get to assumed knowledge and recommended studies here. So for psychology honours, you can see that we're assuming you've done 2 units of English, but ideally you will have done mathematics advanced because there is quite a lot of statistics in psychology, which takes a few students off guard. And then down further, it actually shows you other ways that you can get into psychology too, because a lot of students will come to university later in life as a mature age student or a non-school leaver, and will use other qualifications to assess whether they get into that particular degree other than their ATAR. So it tells you about all of those different ways that you could get entry. And then also you could click here on the course handbook and you can go in and read about all the different subjects that you do within that psychology degree. So that might also help you decide if that's a degree that's of interest to you. All right, I'm going to stop sharing the website. Hopefully I wasn't making anyone feel ill scrolling up and down. And we'll go back into the presentation. I've got a couple more slides before I'll hand over to Trudy. All right. I just want to tell you about a couple of programs that we have available for Year 11 and 12 students that you might want to think about over the next couple of years. So firstly, we have our Year 11 Future Me program, and this has two components. So one component is a workshop within your school where the inter-uni mentors will come out and look at post-school options with you and strategies in how to achieve those different post-school career paths or university qualifications or whatever that may be. And the second part of the Year 11 Future Me program is an optional opt-in. We can opt into a program where you'll get taught how to develop your pitch, you'll get taught a bit about entrepreneurship. So that's the Year 11 Future Me. The other program that we have is the Year 12 Future Me. So if you're familiar with anybody that did the university preparation program, or if your school participates in that, you may have heard people talk about the UPP. It's now called the Year 12 Future Me. And this is where you'll attend over 20 hours of, you'll get 20 hours of content from inter-uni mentors that have achieved a band 5 in HSC subjects. And some of that content is delivered online, but some of it's delivered face-to-face on campus as well. And it's all delivered in term 2 and term 3 of Year 12. So they'll talk to you about subject-specific content, but also transitioning to university. And as part of the Future Me program in Year 12, you also can come to our HSC Super Study Day, which will help prepare you for the HSC exams, but also transitioning to whatever awaits you after high school. And that might be tertiary education, or it might be the workforce. And as part of the Future Me program, you also will be given assistance in applying for your early admission applications and filling in other university applications. And you're guaranteed an admissions interview with the University of Wollongong in our early admission program. For the parents out there that might be watching tonight, it's good to know that when you get to Year 12, your child gets to Year 12, that there is something for their support crew as well, which is you guys. So you can sign up for our Parent Future Talks, where you'll get to log on and ask questions of the university, ask questions of other parents that are in the same situation as you. You can talk about situations that your student or your child might be facing. You can get help navigating all of the tertiary providers and the pathway programs and the world of work. You can get help from the university in helping your child prepare their university applications and ask all those questions that you might not be getting answers for at home. And you also have the option as part of the Future Talks to sign up to get a weekly newsletter, especially for you, just for the parents, that'll be giving you all that information that you need to know to support your child through that grueling HSC year. And then the last one that I'll talk about is our summer masterclass. So these are 3-week subjects that are run in the January of Year 12. So you do those just before your Year 12 year kicks off. And we offer them in a range of subjects across the university. So you can do a summer masterclass in visual arts, for example. You can do something in English. There's a range of different business ones that you can do, or university level science masterclasses that you can do. So they're taught by a university academic. They extend on the HSC curriculum and the content, but also deliver you content that you would learn in a first year university subject. And the thing with the summer masterclass is you actually get credit for that subject as well. You're enrolled at the university as a student, and then you get credit towards a subject at uni. So that's one less subject that you have to do. The summer masterclass does have a fee attached to it, but there are fully funded equity places available. So you can apply for one of those. If you have any questions about these outreach programs that I've just talked about, James from our outreach and widening participation team is on the Q&A tonight. So please ask him any questions. You can find out if your school is eligible. The majority of schools in our local region are eligible, but for some of the programs, if you meet certain equity criteria, you're eligible to participate in those. And the last programs that I'll talk to you about that you might be interested in Year 11 and 12 is a fitness qualification that's delivered by UOW College. So you can get a Cert 3 in fitness by doing a school-based traineeship. What you need to do, if that's of interest to you, is you actually seek out a fitness employer, and then you communicate with the school-based apprenticeship officer at the Department of Education, and they'll coordinate that for you. But as part of this, you'll be studying 16 subjects that UOW College delivers in their Cert 3 in fitness, and you have to do 700 hours of work experience to get that qualification across year 11 and 12. That probably sounds like a lot. It's 100 7-hour days, so that's 50 in year 11 and 50 in year 12. And these are done outside of school time, so they might be after school hours or during the school holidays where you'll achieve those professional work placements within the fitness industry. But it means at the end of year 12, you have a certificate 3 in fitness and you can go out and start working in that field. Those courses are free of charge for students at public schools. The independent schools or the private schools may choose to pass some of the fees on to the students, so just check with your school about that. The EVET course is also the certificate 3 in fitness, but you'll only do 12 of the 16 competencies within the Cert 3, but you will get given a statement of attainment at the end of year 12. And then you can choose to go on and complete the other 4 subjects of the Cert 3 after you finish school, and you can apply for smart and skilled funding to help pay for that for you. With the EVET course, you do 30 hours of work placements, which is all coordinated for you by UOW College, and you come onto the university campus to study those subjects. That's done within school time or after school in the afternoon, and it's delivered here on the UOW campus. We can deliver them within schools, one afternoon a week, but there has to be 10 students enrolled in the program for us to be able to come out and run that at individual schools. So hopefully some of those might be of interest to you. And we do have Annika from UOW College on the Q&A tonight as well, so she can answer questions about that and also about our Pathways programs that Doug will touch on later. Annika will be there to answer those questions. All right, I'm now going to hand over to Trudy, who's going to go through the ATAR and a little bit of information about scaling.
Thank you very much for that, Deb. It's really nice to be here tonight. And I think Deb's going to share my screens with you because a bit of lag here with my internet. But before we start, what I want to reassure students is that, subject selection can be fairly straightforward, but UAC will supply booklets to schools. It's called Steps to Uni for Year 10 students, and it discusses HSC. It also discusses the ATAR, and it will also provide you with that information on prerequisites, assumed knowledge and recommended studies, not just for Wollongong, but for all universities. You may be also thinking, well, what is UAC? UAC is a central office that looks after university applications on behalf of 27 different institutions. We also look after applications for special consideration, so educational access schemes. We look after schools recommendation schemes, which is an early entry scheme, and equity scholarships. And you'll find out more about those once you get into year 11 and 12. I think the one thing that we are most known for is the fact that we do calculate the ATAR for all New South Wales HSC students. So just here in New South Wales. I'm going to talk about the ATAR now because it's of great interest. I love talking about it, but I find that year 10 students are the ones that are really quite interested in it because they hear all the myths out there about, certain subjects scaling you up and certain subjects scaling you down. And all I want to say to you now is really you need to take on the courses that you are good at, that you have the ability for, and of course, courses that will help you be successful once you finish school. Because I think we have to remember that year 11 and 12 is really there to set you up for what next. So whether that be work or whether that be tertiary education, these things are there to help you be more successful. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the difference between the HSC marks and the ATAR. Once you understand that there's a difference, makes it a lot easier to understand. Now, at the end of year 12, NESA, or the New South Wales Education Standards Authority, reports to year 12 students the HSC courses that they have completed, which tells them about how well they have performed. So those marks that they achieve for each course tells them how well they've done or how well they've performed. UAC, of course, provides students with one number on the same day, and that one number shows a student where they are positioned amongst all other students in the state. Now, we talk about it like being in a running race because it's so easy to understand, and that is that all year 12 students are in this running race. Now, your son or daughter may get to the end and they may be really, really happy with themselves because they've just done their personal best performance. They've never run that fast before. And let's hope in the HSC they get marks at the end like they've never got before. So personal best performance. Now, they might be standing at that finish line and think, well, I've just done really great work. I've really just done a fantastic performance. But when I look around, I'm actually positioned in the middle of the pack. So performance and position may look very different. And the only thing that a student can control in the whole scenario of performance and position, or HSC marks and ATAR, is how well they're going to perform. They can't control their ATAR or their position because they can't control the competition, like in the running race. So what is the ATAR? The ATAR, of course, is a rank. It's not a mark or a score. It will not define you as a student for the rest of your life. It just tells us that at the end of year 12, this is where you're positioned for the sole purpose of university entry. It is, of course, a number between 0 and 99.95. And, why do we use it? And we use it so that universities can or do have some kind of control about numbers of students that they are allowing or have to be able to consider for university entry. So let's move on to scaling. Lots of people ask about scaling, and usually they talk about this before they talk about anything else, because they talk, especially in year 10, oh, well, you must do 4 units of maths and you must do physics and you must do chemistry. That is the only way you're going to get a high ATAR. And I can tell you now that that is absolutely incorrect. That's a myth out there. So what is scaling? The scaling is actually the first step in the calculation of the ATAR. Bearing in mind that we have about 119 HSC courses. Last year, we had nearly 72,000 HSC students. We had 56,000 of them that were ATAR eligible. Out of all of those students, we had 27,000 different patterns of study. Now, what's a pattern of study? So for year 10 students, they have to select up to 12 units of study to complete in year 11. That satisfies the HSC requirements. Once they go on to year 12, they can either keep those 12 units or 13 units and then drop down if they wish to, but that's really between them and the school. So you're doing 12 units. Your pattern of study, of course, is that number of units that you're completing. So going back to scaling, if we've got 27,000 different patterns of study amongst all these hundreds, tens of thousands of students, how do we then rank and put everybody into order for the sole purpose of university entry? Because how do we compare a student who has all maths and science to a student that has all humanities subjects? The scaling algorithm comes into it. And we do it so that no student is either advantaged or disadvantaged because of their course choice. That's why we say to you, pick the things that you're good at and that you like and that may help you if you're going on to tertiary education. Now, some truth about scaling. A lot of students, of course, look at the scaling report that we publish every single year, and they look at it and say, well, see, that course has got a high scale mean. That must mean UAC's going to scale me up if I do it. But we do have to remember that the ATAR is about position. Now, if you take on a course because of a perceived ATAR and you don't do very well, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're probably going to be at the bottom of the class, positioned badly, and no amount of scaling is going to put you to the top. So it's really about how well you do in the course. The scaling, of course, is based on the student's academic ability. So we're not scaling courses whatsoever. We're scaling the student's academic ability. Courses with a high scale mean just tells you that the academic ability of the students in the course is quite high. Courses with a lower scale mean just tells us that the academic ability of the students in that course varies from high to low. It does not mean that you cannot get a high ATAR, which includes a course with a low scale mean, because that is certainly incorrect. And I'm going to show you some data to now tell you or show you exactly what I'm talking about. First of all, I'm going to tell you how we calculate it. We calculate it based on scaled marks, not your HSC marks, but scaled marks using your 2 units of English, which is your compulsory subject, and then 8 extra units that you may have studied. Now, if you only take on 10 units, of course, we will have to use all of them. But a lot of students will take on more than 10 units. So we do have a couple of units we can play with. But 10 units in total, 2 units of English, and then 8 of your next remaining units of study. If you take on of what we call a category B course or your VET framework course, where it has got the additional external exam, then we can only use 2 units of those courses in the calculation. When you read through the booklet that you will receive from UAC in May, we describe the courses as either category A or category B. For the majority of courses of category A, it's only your VET framework courses, and there's about a dozen of them that we call category B. All right, now I'm going to move on to show you the data that I wanted you to look at so you understand what I'm talking about. And this is just a selection of the 119 courses that are available to students. And of course, not all schools can offer all 119. As you can see there, we've got category A and 1 category B course because they fit on the screen. And then the next column shows you what we call the median performance band. So all students, when they get their HSC marks, it will also tell them what performance band that mark aligns to. The performance bands go from 1 to 6, with 6 being the highest. And at band 6, there's marks between 90 and 100, a band 5, 85 to 89, a band 4, 70 to 79, a band 3, 60 to 69, a band 2 is 50 to 59, and band 1 is anything below 50. Now, the majority of marks really go from 50 to 100 because there's very few students that will get a band 1. So unlike when some of our parents may have been at school where you got marks from 1 to 100 and you got a mark over 50, you went, oh, great, I've passed. In the HSC nowadays, nobody passes or fails. Sorry, I shouldn't say passes. Nobody fails is what I meant to say. However, if you get, when you look at the marks being between 50 and 100 for the majority of them, the middle is around 75. Okay, so that's something to take note of. But if we go back to the median performance band, you can see that for some of these courses, it's band 4s or 5s. For the majority of courses, it's a band 4, so that's marks between 70 and 79. Now, the performance bands have nothing to do with the calculation of the ATAR. That's just there for your interest. If we move on to the next column, it shows you the median mark. And you can see that for the majority of courses, it's 75 and above. There's very few courses, and I think there's only about 14 that have a median mark or a middle mark less than 75. If we look at the next one, the HSC mean, which is the average performance, it's not much different to the median mark. If we look at the next one, however, that's the scaled mean or the average position. And this tells us about the strength of the competition or the academic ability of students in the course. And as you can see, Aboriginal Studies is one course that I know last year that had a fairly low scale mean. However, if you have a look at the maximum ATAR that was achieved last year, where both units of the course were included in the ATAR, you can see that although Aboriginal Studies had a low scale mean, the maximum ATAR last year was 98.4. So really it's showing you that it doesn't matter what you study as long as you do well and position yourself well. And to do that, you need to be getting marks on or above the median mark. So above that 75, which is good. And that way you would then receive an ATAR, which is around the middle or above. If I move on to the next slide and tell you about Fred and Laura, this really cements some of the information I've been telling you. And here we have two students, Fred and Laura, and we calculate their ATAR every single year. Now, Fred gets marks of 70, Laura marks of 80, so 10 marks apart. However, if we look at their ATAR is 20 points difference. Now, a lot of people will automatically look at Fred's ATAR of 58 last year and say, well, hang on, how does that work? 58 is not an average of 70. There's something wrong. Somebody's done something wrong. Probably because I did visual arts, UAC has scaled me down. Now, remember, we're not scaling courses. We're scaling students' academic ability, and we're not using the HSC marks that Fred's got. We're using scaled marks, which are totally different. The actual story behind Fred and Laura's ATARs here is not in the HSC marks, but in that percentile column, because that tells us where each of these students are positioned in their courses. So for instance, last year in biology, a mark of 70 last year placed Fred in the 40th percentile. So what does that mean? It actually means that Fred had 6% of students in the HSC last year that got marks better than him. Now, if we look at Laura, for instance, a mark of 80 placed her in the 72nd percentile, which means she had a lot less students ahead of her. She only had 28% of students ahead of her. If we look at English Advanced last year, a mark of 70 placed Fred in the 6th percentile, which means he had 94% of students that got marks better than him. Laura, a mark of 80, still placed her in the bottom 50% of students because, as we can see here, the median mark or the middle mark for English Advanced last year was 82. If we look at the percentile column for each of Fred's courses, we can see that he's positioned in the bottom 50% for everything that he's completed. If we look at Laura, on the other hand, you can see that for most courses, except for English and visual arts, she's placed above the 50th percentile, which means she's in the top 50% for most things. And I would say once we calculated her ATAR, that visual arts wasn't included, remembering we only use 10 units of study, which has to include, of course, English. So, moral to the story. The moral to the story is that in year 10, all I need you to concentrate on is picking the subjects that you are going to do well in, the things that you really like and are really passionate about, and the things that might help you if you're going on to tertiary education. If you don't know what you want to do at uni, that's absolutely fine. In year 10, I wouldn't expect you to, but it's coming up for that subject selection. You like both sciences and maths, and you also like the humanities subject, then take something from each side, and that will certainly widen your options when you get to the other end of year 12 and you're selecting the courses that you want to go into. I think that's it from me. If you want to get in touch, please follow our social media channels. We're always putting updates. And of course, if you've got any questions, I'm quite happy to answer them through the chat. Thanks for that, Deb. I'll pass back to you, and thank you for having me this evening.
Thanks so much, Trudy. Really valuable information for the students, and we second your advice and pick the subjects that you're passionate about. They're the ones you're going to do the best in, and they're the ones that are going to set you up for a future career that you're going to enjoy. All right, now I'm going to hand over to Doug.
Thanks, Deb and Trudy. Stick with us, guys. I know there's been a lot of information and some really great information, some really good questions coming through on the Q&A too. So keep those coming while I'm talking. There's plenty of people there to answer your question. So we've gone in depth into sort of subject specific information, We've gone into the ATAR, and now we get into a bit of University of Wollongong specific info. So particularly our early admission program. So early admission is a pre-HSC offer scheme that's been running at University of Wollongong for over 20 years, where basically we'll assess you in your HSC year, but issue offers prior to the HSC commencing. So just clicking through. Essentially, the early admission program has an online application portal, and bearing in mind all this information that I'm going through tonight is as of 2021. And while the program has by and large stayed the same over the years, there is changes from year to year. So this is sort of current information, but obviously keep checking with us as you get closer to year 12. So online application during sort of that July-August period when you're in year 12. You can apply for 2 courses. So that gives you the opportunity, if you're still a little bit undecided about the course of interest at that point, you can sort of hedge your bets and apply for both. A few little tricks there too with double degrees and things like that, where you can apply for a double degree and that only takes up one of your preferences out of the 2. But yeah, it just lets you sort of still, if you're a little bit undecided, to help you make up your mind. Part of the assessment, so at this stage, the way the process works is we use your Year 11 results as our initial assessment of sort of your academic readiness. And in that application, you'll also be asked 4 questions. And again, questions likely to change between now and the time this cohort's coming through year 12. But as it stands, we theme these questions around these 4 areas, which are academic readiness, motivation and passion, planning and persistence, and communication and collaboration. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on the next slide. But essentially what we're looking for and what early admission is sort of built on is more than just your obviously your academic results. While a really important part of studying at university, no doubt, to be academically capable, that there is some soft skills and some other things that we can identify in students and have done over this 20-year period this program has been running, that give us an indication that you're going to be a suitable university student. So the questions revolve around those. And then likewise, there's often an interview component depending on how your initial assessment goes. And if you do interview, the questions in the interview will often be around similar themes, because ultimately those 4 areas are what we're basing our assessment on. And like I said, with the academic component only making up sort of a quarter of that. Ultimately, yeah, the outcome then is given prior to the commencement of the HSC. So takes a bit of pressure off there. So if you know you've got an offer already in the bag, hopefully that relieves a little bit of pressure. You only find out just prior to the HSC. So that notion of sort of not trying as hard in the HSC is probably not valid, given that if you haven't tried up until that point, you're probably in a bit of trouble anyway. So we definitely say just put that offer to the side, go as hard as you can in the HSC, do the best that you can. And then obviously if when the ATARs come out, if you're still weighing up your options, you've got that offer there ready to activate and enroll. So what can you do now to prepare for early admission? So obviously your subject selection is a huge component of that in terms of this academic readiness. And just working hard to get some good results in year 11, given that we do use those as the initial assessment. But then definitely don't take the foot off the pedal and keep going into year 12 to get the best results that you can. As we progress through the year 12 period, in approaching the interview, you can bring in your year 12 half yearly and trial HSC results. Motivation and passion. So things that you can do there, that's basically just proving sort of why you want to study the area that you're choosing to study. So anything that you've done, work experience, research, volunteering, things like that, anything that UOW or other universities put on, that you can sort of, it gives us an indication that that area that you're interested in, much less university study in general, is driving your decision to apply. Planning and persistence. So that's basically around showing us that you're ready for university study, as Deb alluded to earlier on. It's a little bit different to high school. So being able to balance priorities, manage your time, achieve goals, bodes really well for a university student. So we look for examples around that. So if you can nut down some of those skills in terms of, organising your time and making sure that you submit everything on time, that'll go well towards an application. Communication and collaboration. So universities study often very collaborative in terms of group work, and every UOW degree has some element of sort of work integrated learning where you'll be either on a prac or doing some work experience or an internship and things like that. So knowing that you're a good communicator, that you can talk to people, introduce yourself, and work in a group dynamic is really well regarded in an early admission application. So anything that you can show in your application that, or you can work on during year 10 and 11, that you can use in that application. So leadership roles, if for school captains, SRCs, sports. So if you play team sport, part-time employment bodes really well if you've held down a part-time job while you're studying. So any of those extracurricular activities that just sort of show that you're a really well-rounded student, that you can balance out your study and everything else that you've got going on in a really busy few years. As Trudy spent a fair bit of time on there with the ATAR, just really mindful that whenever you're researching UOW degrees, we do advertise what's called a selection rank. So your selection rank is your ATAR plus what we call adjustment factors. So adjustment factors are other scores added to your ATAR for the three reasons that you can see on the screen there. So UOW applies catchment adjustments. So that's based on the school that you attend. If you want to check if your school is valid for a catchment adjustment, you can go to the UOW website via the early admission page and search that. Most of our sort of key drawing regions, particularly obviously the Illawarra, southwestern Sydney, Sutherland Shire, things like that, but even out into regional and remote New South Wales, quite a few schools. So worth having a look there. That's three adjustments on top of your ATAR. And then as Trudy touched on, UAC will apply some subject adjustments and equity adjustments in the background. So they're based on performance in subjects relevant to the degree that you're studying, or any of those equity factors sort of in line with the EAS scheme. So while you'll receive your ATAR, those adjustment factors are sort of playing out behind the scenes. So when you're looking through UOW collateral and having a look at sort of the projected requirements, just make sure you're factoring that in. That we do use the selection rank in all our materials. The UOW College. So the UOW College is a pathway provider into the University of Wollongong bachelor programs. So there's a whole host of reasons why people come to us via the college. Really legitimate pathway for low and no ATAR students. Those that are maybe sort of non-school leaver and returning to education after a bit of a break. But indeed those that are just looking for a career-ready qualification. So basically the college offers diploma level courses. It offers obviously the Cert 3 and 4 in fitness, like Deb touched on earlier, and a whole bunch of enabling programs. So they're basically programs that, again, yeah, if you've suffered some disadvantage, if you are a low ATAR student, we'll just assist you getting up to being ready for university level study. So that extra sort of preparation before you come into uni. As you can see there, the college offers programs across a vast array of study areas, and the vast majority of UOW degrees have a pathway via the college to start your studies with the college and then transition into a bachelor's degree. Everything from the pathway programs and the enabling programs right up until those sort of discipline-specific study areas that you can see there. As Deb mentioned, we do have college staff in the background on the Q&A, so if you've got any questions about those, I'm just mindful of time. We're going to try and get to some Q&A on screen if we can at the end. Often get asked about scholarships. Basically speaking, from a UOW perspective, we have a sort of single application portal for scholarships, and then we'll assess you against the ones that you're eligible for. And again, scholarships change from year to year, but by and large, the sort of categories there on the screen are the types of scholarships that you can have a think about with UOW. So obviously academic scholarships, but really common misconception that scholarships are sort of all academic focused. As you can see there, we've got a range of kind of categories of our scholarships. So faculty-based scholarships, so that's not necessarily based on academic performance. That's just relevant to the degree that you could be studying. There's work integrated learning scholarships where you may get a placement with an industry partner during your degree and have a financial incentive with that. Likewise, corporate scholarships, where there's donations from commercial partners of the university, sporting scholarships, obviously they're depending on the level that you're competing, and then obviously equity and community scholarships. So trying to look after students from equity backgrounds, low participation areas, regional and remote students, and things like that. So highly encourage you to keep on top of the scholarship opportunities that we have each year. As I say, they do change from year to year, but we'll obviously communicate with students that are applying, particularly via early admission and things like that, about the scholarship opportunities that we have each year. Another big one that students really like to consider, obviously it's been on a bit of a hold for the last sort of 12 months with the pandemic, but studying overseas, so study abroad and exchange. So as soon as we're able to, we'll be reactivating a lot of these programs. And we do have a lot of connections with a lot of institutions around the world. Really just important to note the difference between a sort of short trip, which is more of an experience-based opportunity versus an exchange where you're actually trying not to lose any time off your degree, where the subjects and the content that you study during your stay actually counts back towards your degree. Important to note that you can't always do that depending on your degree and the different accreditation requirements of the different countries, that it's not always possible to study everything on exchange in every country. So the best advice there is start planning early, particularly when you sort of hit year 12. And indeed, if you enroll at UOW, start having those conversations very early to start the planning to make sure that you can maximise and get the most out of the experience. Why UOW? So you'll, over the next few years, you'll see a lot of rankings and statistics and things like that thrown at you. But the main things I always try and highlight is to do your own research. So a lot of the statistics and things that you see do come from independent sort of third-party government providers. So doing that research, comparing institutions against each other. And you'll often see that a lot of the rankings are on that world scale. And that's the big one for the University of Wollongong, in that we are considered a regional university, but we certainly compete on that global scale. We're really well regarded, really well ranked in a lot of those global rankings across a myriad of different sort of categories in terms of overall, but also discipline-specific rankings, student experience, quality of learning and teaching, and then likewise domestically comparing us against other universities that you may be considering within New South Wales or Australia. So you might notice one, a ranking provider called Quilt, and Quilt is an independent assessor of Australian universities across a range of areas, where you can literally tick the boxes of which universities you're considering, which study areas, and they'll compare the rankings across all those categories. So just a good way to get your own sort of indication of where we sit in comparison to some of the other institutions that you may be considering. Another key one to consider, particularly if we've got people on the webinar tonight from sort of anywhere around New South Wales other than Wollongong, I guess, that we are a multi-campus institution. While the campus in Wollongong is the sort of central campus, we do have campuses all up and down the east coast of New South Wales. So as far south as Bega and Batemans Bay, up through the Shoalhaven, the Southern Highlands up there in Mossvale, obviously the Wollongong campus and our innovation campus at Fairy Meadow, and then into our Southern Sydney campus at Loftus, Southwestern Sydney campus in Liverpool, and our Sydney CBD campus. So probably main thing to note there is that not all degrees are offered at every campus. So if you're interested in potentially, and often it's local students to those areas, staying home and sort of dipping their toe into tertiary study before potentially transferring if they did want to come and study at Wollongong, or it may just be a convenience thing for the location fit and the degree. So nursing's offered at the vast majority of campuses. Likewise, sort of business administration style courses, but anything with a sort of a hands-on practical element where you need laboratories and engineering sort of equipment, those are largely based in Wollongong. So just when you're looking at our course guides or the website, it'll clearly state which courses are offered at which campuses. For those that would need to relocate to the Wollongong campus, we do offer accommodation here at Wollongong. So the main decisions that you generally need to make when you're deciding if you're going to come and live on a campus, on residence, is where do you want to live? Do you want that to be on campus? So we've got a couple of residences here on the Wollongong campus, Coolabong Village being the largest with about 1,200 residents up there, and Bangalore, which is predominantly for mature age or non-school leaver and postgraduate students. And then if you're interested in living out by the beach, we've got Campus East, which is about a 10-minute drive from campus, home to about 500 students out there. Does have some catered options out there as well if cooking for yourself isn't an ideal scenario at this stage. And then finally, Market View, which is located right in the CBD. So depending on the style of accommodation, that could be anything from studio apartments where you'll live by yourself to 4-share, 5-share apartments where you'll have some roommates and some instant friends. So a long way down the track, but definitely worth considering the types of options that we've got and starting to do that research if you are from an area that you know you will have to relocate to Wollongong. That photo there's just Coolabong Village. They're our the newest additions to Coolabong, being the 3 towers on the right there. Finally, just life on campus. So for those of you that have been lucky enough to visit our campus, you'll see that it's a beautiful natural environment, lots of trees and very open and green, but not lacking in facilities. So world-class facilities from everything from obviously sporting facilities like the uni gym, the sports hub with an Olympic-sized swimming pool, tennis courts, everything on offer there from a sporting perspective. Restaurants, coffee shops, so we've got things like Zambrero, we've got Subway, more coffee shops than you can poke a stick at. The uni bar, which really good opportunity to see some live music, obviously meet new people, some of the other events that they run there, and then just on-campus experiences. So there is a group within the university called Uni Life, and they're responsible for, as their name suggests, your life while you're at university in terms of things like clubs and societies. So they run all the clubs and societies that help you sort of get to know some people with similar interests at the university, do some extracurricular activities, lead that really balanced lifestyle, make new friends. And yeah, if there's not a club or society for the area of interest that you've got, if you can get a few people together, they'll let you start one, which is a great idea. It's never too early to come and check us out. So Saturday, the 7th of August this year, all things being equal from a restrictions point of view, we're going to be having a face-to-face open day, which would be great. So come down, up, across and check it out. We really put on a good show on open day. There's an opportunity to talk to academics in the fields that you may be interested in, current students to get a student perspective, tour all the facilities, have a look at accommodation, yeah, and really just starting to get a feel if you think UOW might be suitable for you. So keep an eye on that. Registrations will be open pretty soon. So I can see a few things popping through the Q&A there now. I might let Deb jump back on and we'll just have a look through and see if there's any common questions that we might want to answer live. Otherwise, we'll do our best to stay on for a little bit until the questions sort of slow up. But thanks so much for joining us. I know there has been a few questions on there about a recording of this webinar. That will be sent to you after the event. So just keep an eye on your email in the coming days and you'll be able to watch back if there was anything that you missed or if you joined us for late or anything like that. But thanks very much for your time and I'll hand back over to Deb.
Thanks, Doug. All right, I think the team in the background have been doing a great job. I can see we've answered 53 questions, so there's not a lot left open there. I don't think we've got to one of the questions where we've been asked, do you get extra points for AMEB exams, so Australian Music Examination Board? We don't have a general rule where points are applied to AMEB results. However, that's something that would look fantastic in your early admission application because it shows that you've dedicated your time to learning an instrument, the amount of hours and practice and time that goes into perfecting an instrument alongside your school studies certainly shows your time management skills, your independent learning style, and you may have even set yourself a goal to reach a certain level within your music studies and you've achieved that throughout studying. So we don't have a blanket rule where you get bonus ATAR adjustment factors for AMEB exams at the University of Wollongong. Other universities you may, and certainly at the Conservatorium of Music, I imagine that you would, but with UOW, there's no sort of set rule, but I would certainly use it in your answers to your early admission questions and also in any scholarship applications as well.
Deb, if you wouldn't mind me just jumping in there.
Yeah, that'd be great.
For students that do have that, we would definitely advise them to list it on their UAC application. So if they've got other institutions that will look at it, then that would certainly help them make their decisions as well. So yes, students can list that on their application, UAC application for consideration.
Thanks. Thank you. Now looking at a question from Annalise about subjects we recommend for criminal law or creative fashion. With law, so you can specialise in criminal law as you go throughout our law degree. Likewise, you can do property law, contract law, family law. And as I explained, you'll pick a whole lot of subjects within the criminal law area to get a specialisation in that field. So it's the same for all of our law degrees. We just assume that you're doing 2 units of English, but we recommend that you're doing advanced English if you can. With the creative fashion-based degree, we don't offer fashion design at the University of Wollongong. I think that's at maybe UTS. However, you could do a Bachelor of Creative Arts in Visual Arts, and I do believe there's some room within that specialisation where you could do some fashion-based subjects, but it's generally across a lot of traditional mediums such as painting and sculpture and drawing and so on within the visual arts major. So with creative arts though, it is, with most of our creative arts degrees, it is looking at English, and then depending on if you want to go into music or into our performance degree, then obviously would be recommending that you're doing music at school or that you're doing drama. But with fashion design, it'd be more an opportunity. I think you'd have to look at either other universities if that's your specialisation, or you could do some of the subjects as part of creative arts here.
Definitely, Deb, UTS, you were right. So
yeah.
For those people out there wanting to know that, definitely UTS.
Yeah, definitely. And I do get asked about that quite a bit. Unfortunately, we don't have every degree. I speak to so many students who have their hearts set on studying with the University of Wollongong because they've been here before and they know the campus, or they know someone that studied here. And we just don't have every particular degree, unfortunately. So I've had to break a few hearts across the years, but we do have a broad range. So, and we do encourage you, come along. If you haven't been to any of our campuses before, come along and check them out, and visit all the university campuses to see which one's right for you when you're making your decisions. All right. We've seen a couple of questions come through. I can see Casey's answering one. I'll answer a question from Ella about what subjects do you recommend for a dietitian or nutrition-based degree? Great question. So at UOW, we do have the 3-year Bachelor of Nutrition Science degree, or we have the 4-year Bachelor of Nutrition and Dietetics degree. So in that 4th year, you'll do placements in a dietetic setting. With those, they are a science degree, so they do sit within our health and medicine area. So we recommend, or we assume that you're doing mathematics advanced, and we recommend that you're doing 4 units of science. There is quite a lot of chemistry within a nutrition degree. I'm certainly not an expert, but I know that you do look at the chemical makeup of food and how it affects different dietary conditions. So you will be undertaking a lot of quite heavy science subjects within that degree. So if you can do science throughout year 11 and 12, that would certainly help you to go into nutrition science. So hopefully that helped Ella with that question. There's no other questions at the moment, which is amazing, but I'm going to sit here for a while and just smile at the camera and see if any more come through. But I'd like to extend my thanks with Doug as well to all of you for joining us tonight. We wish you all the very best of luck as you make your decisions over the coming months. Again, remember, pick things that you enjoy because they're the ones that you're going to do well with and that you're going to get the best out of. So no other questions? Unfortunately, because we're in a webinar setting, you can only type them in. You can't unmute and ask me live. So potentially someone might be typing, so I'll give them a couple of minutes. Yes, do we have any construction degrees? Unfortunately, not in construction. I do get asked about construction management and things quite a lot. We do have a Bachelor of Engineering specialising in civil, so that's looking at the construction of major roadways and bridges and tunnels and dams and all those huge kind of structures that make our world and our society function. And so potentially if something, construction management was what you're looking for, an engineering civil degree, and then a lot of our engineering students actually do go on and do something like an MBA, where they will do a Master of Business and work their way up into management within their engineering firms. So hopefully that answers your question, Alana. All right. Architecture, what subjects do you recommend? We have an architectural engineering major within our engineering degree, which kind of bridges the gap between engineers and architects. We don't actually offer the Bachelor of Architecture at our university. However, if you were to do architectural engineering, it goes with all of the sort of recommended subjects that we have for engineering, which is advanced mathematics and extension 1 maths if you can, and then ideally maybe something in engineering studies, or given its architecture, maybe even something more in the creative fields as well, in the design side of things. So hopefully that answered your question, Claire, and unfortunately we don't have the Bachelor of Architecture. All right, I'm trying to read them at the same time.
Deb, just a question there about the difference, I guess, between primary and secondary education.
Yeah, great. Yep. So our primary education degree, 4-year degree, 75 selection rank that are available via our early admission as well. So training you up obviously to work within primary schools. So you'll cover a range of different discipline subjects so that you can teach across 4 of the 6 key learning areas within primary schools, which is English, science, maths, creative arts, PDHPE, and there's one other that I've missed, but you'll study discipline subjects across the primary education degree, as well as subjects like called pedagogy, which basically teaches you how to be a teacher and how to deliver that content in a way that all of the different students within your class, with all of their different levels of learning, will be able to comprehend and understand. With the secondary education, same thing, you're learning all the pedagogy subjects, how to be a good teacher, but with the exception of maths education, science education, and PDHPE that we offer as package degrees, and you do the discipline subjects and the teaching subjects equally throughout the degree. If you wanted to be a high school teacher in any other area, like say a business studies teacher or a history teacher or a drama teacher, you actually do the discipline degree first, say a Bachelor of Arts in history or maybe a Bachelor of Geography, and then you do a 2-year Master of Teaching, and that's where you'll do all your professional experience within schools and where you'll learn how to be a good teacher. So we'll actually take you 5 years to be qualified as a secondary teacher in any of those other fields, but you've also got a full degree within that area as well. So if you decide that you don't want to go into teaching, you're still trained either with history or geography or drama, and you can go into a different area with that qualification. All right, let's have a look what other questions that we have. If I don't get high enough ATAR, can I still get into the degree that I want to do? So Maddie, yes, we encourage you to apply to early admission. That is where we're not looking at your ATAR as such, because we're making a decision much earlier before we know your ATAR, and we're looking at your other individual skills and attributes that you have. So we'll be looking at subjects that you're doing well at, in subjects that relate to the degree that you're applying for via early admission, and then those other things that you've achieved sort of throughout year 11 and 12. If you aren't successful getting early admission or you don't get around to applying, and then we're looking at it, making you an offer based on your ATAR or your selection rank. And if you don't get an ATAR that's high enough to get into the degree that you want, you could do another degree that's related to that has a lower selection rank. So for example, I talked about nutrition science and nutrition and dietetics before. The 3-year nutrition degree has a 78 selection rank, whereas the 4-year degree with dietetics has a 90 selection rank. So you could actually start in the nutrition science degree, work really hard, get a good average across the 3 years, and then apply to go into that 4th-year dietetics year. And law is another really common one we get asked about. So law on its own, or as a double degree, has a selection rank of 90. But some students might choose to go into, say, the other degree that they want to do, whether it's business or international studies, that has a lower selection rank of 70 or 75. Start in that degree, work really hard, and at the end of the first year, you can do a faculty application to add law and start studying law from your 2nd or 3rd year. So you still end up finishing the double degree in 5 years. You've just done more of your business or international studies subjects at the start and a heavier load of the law degrees at the end. And then the other option, if there's not a bachelor program that would lead you into sort of your dream course that has a lower selection rank, there's all the UOW college programs that Doug talked about as well. So there's pathways programs that are set up to support students, get them ready for the university environment, and on successful completion of one of those college pathway programs, like the University Access Program or the University Entrance Certificate, you can get guaranteed entry into the first year of a university degree. or if you do one of the diplomas that Doug had on the screen before, you then actually get entry into the second year of the degree. So it's not taking you any longer, and it's not costing you any more, because they're all sort of funded the same as your university degree. So there is lots of ways, or you might go and work and come to university later as a non-school leaver. So that's in the answer to if you don't get the ATAR you need. Yes, there's lots of options. Don't give up. There's so much pressure on that digit, that number, that ATAR, when there's so many other ways we can look at whether you're suited for university. All right. A question about speech pathology and sports psychology. That's a mouthful. So we don't offer speech pathology, which is a real shame. We do have a pathway into it. You can do our Bachelor of Pre-Medicine Science and Health, and then you can actually apply to do a Master's of Speech Pathology at another university. So our pre-med degree has been set up and approved as an admissions pathway into those masters. So you could do speech pathology that way. Sports psychologist, so you're still going into the psychology degree. So we have 3 different psychology degrees at UOW, either Bachelor of Arts Psychology, Bachelor of Psychological Science, which have 78 selection rank, or the Bachelor of Psychology Honours, which is a 89 selection rank, I think. The first 2 are a 3-year degree, whereas the honours year has that 4th-year degree. If you want to be an accredited psychologist, you have to, as a minimum, do the 4-year degree and then go on and do further study, either a 2-year Masters of Clinical Psychology or a year of further study plus a year of placements. So it is about a 6-year path to be an accredited psychologist. And then if you wanted to be a sports psychologist, you're probably looking at further study within that area as well. So I guess cutting a really long answer short, assume knowledge of recommended subjects for psychology, 2 units of English, and ideally maths advanced as well, if you can do that. All right, I notice we've answered a few of the other questions. Still got about 100 of you staying there, so hopefully you're getting all of your questions answered and the information that you needed. I'm still happy to wait a little bit longer and see if any other questions come through. As Doug said, you will get a copy of this recording. If you want to share it with any friends that weren't able to attend tonight, we've got nothing better to do on the weekend, you can watch it again. But yeah, we will email you out a copy with a link to the recording. Doug, I might just get you, if you're still there, to flick from your screen to the last slide. I think we have some ways that they can get in contact with UOW. Yeah, perfect. So you can contact our Future Students team. We have a couple of those members of staff that have been manning the Q&A tonight, so they really do know everything. So you can contact those guys via the 1300 number you can see on your screen, or via the Future Students email, and they can answer any questions that you have. Likewise, you can jump onto our website, and you can, if you're living too far away to come and visit us, you can do a virtual campus tour of our Wollongong and also our Southwestern Sydney campus in Liverpool, or you can book our in-person campus tour as well of any of those campuses, and even our Southern Sydney and our South Coast and our Highlands campuses. We'd love to welcome you there and show you around for an hour or so of those individual campuses. So we encourage you to do that, or as we mentioned, come along to open days and things. And then we also have our fantastic Ask a Student platform. So you can actually jump into that, type in a question and speak to one of our many student ambassadors live. They'll reply to your question as soon as they can, and you can have sort of a 2-way dialogue with those guys. They're from a variety of different degree backgrounds, also different geographical regions. So you might jump onto that Ask a Student platform and see someone that's studying at UOW that came from your town, or that's studying the degree that you want to do, and you can ask questions specifically of that student ambassador. And also a lot of our staff are on that platform as well. All right, so there are all the ways to stay in touch with us. We do go out and visit a lot of the schools within New South Wales. So you will probably see myself or Doug or members of our team across the next couple of years out in your schools, where we will talk to you in detail about early admission and things like that as the time gets closer for you. But otherwise, I'll have another quick look at any other questions that I can answer, and otherwise we'll sign off. So a question about subjects for engineering, mathematics as a bare minimum. there is a lot of maths concepts in engineering. So they do assume that you're doing 2 units of mathematics, and they recommend that you're doing mathematics extension 1 if you can, engineering studies, and either chemistry or physics. I mentioned earlier, chemistry, not as important depending on which major of engineering you go into. So if you're looking at, say, computer engineering, electrical, telecommunications, even biomedical, chemistry, not as important for those specializations, but it is if you're wanting to go into some of the others like mining and civil and mechanical and so on. So ideally though, definitely try and keep up maths if you can, because there is a lot of maths subjects even in the first year. You'll be thrown into a whole lot of different mathematical algorithms and things. But again, I mentioned that we do filter our students into different first year maths subjects in the engineering degree, depending on their level of maths that they've achieved at high school. So hopefully that answered that question. Information about gap years. Yes, I can tell you a little bit about that. So I know students will either look at working for a year maybe so they can get independent status, and then they can get funding from Centrelink and so on to afford to go to university, or they might have a gap year because they want to go and travel, which I know is a bit limited at the moment, but hopefully for you guys, by the time you get to year 12, borders will be open and the world will literally be your oyster for you to go traveling as a gap year. If you're going to go on a gap year though, the advice that we give students is still apply for university while you're in year 12, because then you're getting assessed based on the studies that you've done and the things that you've achieved over the last couple of years, and you're getting assessed with that particular cohort that you've gone through school with. What you then do is you'll get your offer to university and you just let us know that you'd like to defer. And then you go and have your 12 months off, you go and have your gap year, and we hold that place at university for you. So you can defer for up to 12 months. And then what will happen in the following year, in the April or May of that year, we will send you your new offer for university the year after. So then you come back and you'll get all the instructions on how to start the enrollment process and when the orientation is, and you'll come along and start university 12 months later. All right, what are the best subjects to do if I want to become a pharmacist? Again, we don't offer pharmacy. Another degree I can't help you with. However, again, the Bachelor of Pre-Medicine Science and Health can get you into then a Masters of Pharmacy at University of Sydney. I think it is that offers the Masters. So you could do our pre-med degree, and for that, it's a health and medical degree. So we're assuming advanced mathematics and recommending 4 units of science. You do the 3-year degree, and then you apply at another university, and they assess you based on your WAM or your average across your undergraduate degree, and you can go into pharmacy that way. We do have within our science degrees a specialisation in medicinal chemistry. So often that's of interest to students that are thinking about pharmacy because they just have a passion for chemistry and the makeup, I guess, of medical treatments for people. So yeah, medicinal chemistry might be of something of interest to you if you decide not to go down the pharmacy path. Can you take a break during university? Yes, you can. That's called a leave of absence. So you might decide to not have a gap year and come to university straight out of school, which the majority of students do, but then you might decide that you want to take a break throughout uni. So you can apply for a leave of absence. Generally 6 months, but I think in special circumstances, they will approve it for up to 12 months. And you'll contact our Student Central team when you're here at uni and put in your application for a leave of absence. If you're wanting to have some time off so that you can travel, then certainly the best way to do that is through the international exchange program that Doug talked about, because you can actually go and study overseas. You can get money from the university and the government, up to $8,000 to help you go and travel and study over there. And you'll be doing subjects that will count towards your degree back here. So it doesn't make your degree take any longer, but you get to go and study at one of these fantastic international institutions and meet friends from all around the world. All right. No more open questions at the moment. And I'm looking at the time, it's 7:25. I'm sure I have talked your ears off for an hour and a half now. So I might stop it there. And again, thank you for those of you that are still hanging in there at 7:30. Thank you for your time tonight. We do wish you all the very best with those decisions over the next couple of months. And if you have any questions, use those contact details on your screen to get in touch with us. Otherwise, have a lovely evening. Thank you.